So some big things are happening to Genshin Impact, but they're not the good things that you would think. And I just got sent this from one of my buddies about what's going on with Genshin Impact. And I really want to talk about it because it seems like this could be really, really huge and could have some ramifications for not only people who are under the age of 16, but also for us as a consumer of Genshin Impact as it is. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm not gonna like stall too much. So this just came out a little while ago, like as of this recording 3 hours ago. So Genshin Impact developer Hoyoverse forced to pay $20 million fine and to ban the sale of currency to players under 16 without parental control. They will also need to provide a way to buy items upfront, among many other changes. Now, this also links to two other things, so we're going to take a look at those first. We're going to take a look at this Twitter article right here from the FTC, obviously. Genshin Impact game developer will be banned from selling loot boxes to teens under 16 without parental consent. Pay a $20 million fine to settle FTC charges, which takes us to the Federal Trade Commission website itself. And it just goes on again. Genshin Impact game developer will be banned from selling loot boxes to teens. Now, first thing, at least for me, I don't entirely remember if there's a way that they tell the age. Do you have to enter an age when you start a Genshin Impact account? I don't entirely remember myself, but here we go. Let's go ahead and read what this article says. The maker of the video game Genshin Impact has agreed to pay a $20 million fine and to block children under 16 from making in-game purchases without parental consent to settle Federal Trade Commission's allegations the company violated a children's privacy law and deceived children and other users about the real cost of in-game transactions and odds of obtaining rare prizes. Now, what does this entirely mean? Well, it's talking about how you can tell the rates of how you're going to pull something, but it doesn't necessarily go into the rates between pull number 1 to pull number 90. Now, through in-game digging, we've been able to find this, but I don't think it specifically says in the Genshin Impact game how, what these, rates are exactly between those times. So it's got to go through that. Not only that, but obviously gambling to kids under the age of 18 is wrong. That's just apparent. And we know that really gacha games have a predatory practice. I'm surprised it's only happening to Hoyoverse right now. But I think in the future, we will see more companies fall under this, right? Now, this is going into a quote. Genshin Impact deceived children and teens and other players into spending hundreds of dollars on prizes they stood little chance of winning, said Samuel Levine, director of the FTC's Bureau of Consumer Protection. Companies that deploy these dark pattern tactics will be held accountable if they deceive players, particularly kids and teens, about the true costs of in-game transactions. That's big because, again, it's talking about the predatory practices of gacha gaming, right? We all know that when you go to a casino, you know how predatory it can be. But when you go into a gacha game, you're not really paying attention to all that money that you could possibly spend. Take me, for example. I've spent a good chunk of money into Genshin Impact for little results, right? You know, I'm a very small content creator on the space, which, speaking of which, like, comment, subscribe. Go ahead and do all that wonderful stuff. Turn me into a bigger creator. But anyways, I digress. A complaint filed by the Department of Justice upon referral from the Commission alleges that Singapore-based Cognisphere PTA Ltd. And its California-based subsidiary Cognisphere LLC, which do business in the United States as Hoyoverse, actively marketed Genshin Impact to children and collected personal information from them in violation of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Rule, COPPA. The complaint further charged that Hoyoverse deceived players about the odds of winning particular sought-after 5-star loot box prizes and how much it would cost to open loot boxes to win the prizes. It also alleges that the confusing virtual currency system that players had to navigate to open loot boxes and the marketing and promotion tactics used to entice players to open loot boxes were unfair to children and teenagers. What does this imply? Well, when you go through the store, there's all these little things where you could buy this and buy this on top of that, and you know, you can get double the currency by doing this, so on and so forth. The bigger the currency, the more it seems like you're able to get, right? You know, you could do one summon, but 1,600 is a bigger number, and it kind of makes people think, you know, bigger number, bigger rewards, you know, type of thing. That's why when you do a single summon compared to a 10 pull, you're always going to get a 4-star character. But that's also because of the algorithm of like, no matter what, every 10 pulls, whether you do 10 singles or a multi, you're always going to get a 4-star. But I digress. It goes into basically, you know, the predatory practices of how Hoyoverse has their store set up and how you have to scroll through everything. And then there's more stuff for you to buy, right? It continues. Popular among children and teens, Genshin Impact is free to download, but has generated significant revenue through the sale of in-game virtual currency and other content. Players advance in the game by collecting virtual heroes, forming a team, and using heroes' abilities to complete tasks. 5-star heroes are the most desirable to collect given their powers, and they can only be obtained by opening loot boxes, which players can purchase using a virtual currency. Now, people could say, but it's not a loot box. Well, technically it is, because you're using a 10 pull system to be able to pull something that could possibly be beneficial to you. Now, what does that sound like? Well, it sounds like a loot box, because when you open a loot box in Overwatch, you're hoping for a certain skin, right? You got to open loot boxes to get the skin. It's the same exact concept, right? It's the same thing as opening a pack of Pokemon cards. It's the same thing. You're gambling in hope to get something good. The complaint alleges that Genshin Impact purchasing process obscures the reality that consumers commonly must spend large amounts of real money to obtain 5-star prizes, and that some children have spent hundreds and even thousands of dollars to win them. There has been accounts of a person taking their parents' credit card and spending $20,000 on Genshin Impact. It was major news. I think it was in Australia that somebody spent $20,000 on Genshin Impact, which is bonkers to me, right? Don't pay attention to how many 5-stars I have on my account. Players must exchange real dollars of bundles of virtual currency that then have to be re-exchanged multiple times to open loot boxes, with exchange rates in unusual denominations. The complicated system, according to the complaint, misleads consumers about the amount of money that players spend on loot boxes on an ongoing basis, and the amount of money that players would likely need to spend to obtain certain prizes. Hoyoverse drives consumer demand of Genshin Impact's loot boxes through several promotional channels inside and outside of the game, which advertise that desirable prizes will be available only on a limited basis, according to the complaints. Very predatory, right? It's the fear of FOMO, fear of missing out, you know, that type of stuff. This includes using virtual in-game event banners to promote these limited time prizes and social media influencers to glamorize the excitement of opening loot boxes. That is honestly why lately I've been telling people I summon so that you don't have to. I truly believe that nobody should be summoning on these banners because they are very predatory, or at least spending money on these banners, right? Genshin Impact uses anime-style cartoon graphics, bright and colorful animations, and several characters who have the speech and appearance of children to appeal to children. Now, there's more grown-up characters in this game than there are children. Let's be honest. They're going after, you know, kids who are just starting to get into puberty, and they're like, yeah, you know, I like hot men, I like hot women, that type of thing. But there are kids in the game. Yeah, there absolutely is. Hoyoverse has spent millions of dollars hiring social media influencers, many of whom are popular with children, to promote Genshin Impact to their respective audiences on social media platforms including YouTube, TikTok, and video game streaming site Twitch. The complaint alleges that the company's event banners and influencer campaigns give players the impression that they have better odds of obtaining the 5-star prize being promoted than they have in reality, right? So, which is true. Like, that's why we are so on the, you know, hype content. I don't know how to say it. We're more on like making sure that hype beast content is kind of like, you know, died down. You know, we're trying to die that down a little bit and be honest, right? COPPA violations. In addition to unfairly marketing loot boxes to children, the complaint alleges that Hoyoverse failed to comply with the COPPA rule, which requires online services and websites directed to children under 13 to notify parents about the personal information they collect and obtain variable parental consent before collecting and using any personal information collected from children. Now, for those who don't understand, your personal information is being collected from these games. Like, it's just how it is. We're in a day and age where every website that you go to collects your personal data. That's why Amazon is able to find that one thing you just talked about 5 seconds ago, right? You're looking for boots? Boom. Amazon has found you some boots and you didn't even know. Every site does this. But if you're under the age of 13, there are specific rules and guidelines that these companies are supposed to be taking. And this is why it's a COPPA violation, right? The complaint alleges that Genshin Impact is a child-directed online service that collects personal information from children under 13 and therefore is required by COPPA to notify parents about the information they collect from children and to obtain their consent to the collection of that personal data. The complaint, however, alleges that even though Hoyoverse was aware that children under 13 were using its service, it continued to collect personal information from children and use it without obtaining parental consent and complying with other COPPA requirements. Hoyoverse shared with third-party analytics firms and advertisers' user IDs, as well as device-related persistent identifiers to track players' progress, purchases, settings, and friends list according to the complaint. Under the proposed order, which must be approved by a federal judge before it could go into effect, Cognisphere LLC will be required to pay a $20 million monetary penalty and make changes to address the allegations outlined in the complaint. The companies will be prohibited from allowing children under 16 to purchase loot boxes in their video games without the parents' affirmative express consent. There you go. There's going to be a lot less children being able to buy stuff, right? That's what it is. Prohibited from selling loot boxes using virtual currency without providing an option for consumers to purchase them directly with real money. So instead of going into the shop and buying with, buying the currency and then going back to the warp and using that, you could just directly buy from there. I think that, to me, I don't think it's that much because I don't hear a lot of people talking about, oh, I bought the in-store items, because the in-store items are very insignificant. However, I do feel that this is a good change of pace. Maybe we'll see reduced amount needed to summon, but I don't think we will. But it is good to have that option, I guess. Prohibited from misrepresenting loot box odds, prices, and features. Big one. Big one right there. I want to be able to know, like, in the next 10 pull, what is my percentage of getting a 5-star? Being able to see that. Required to disclose loot box odds and exchange rates for multi-tiered virtual currency. Required to delete any personal information previously collected from children under 13 unless they obtain parental consent and retain such data. And is required to comply with COPPA, including its notices and consent requirements. So a lot of the data that they've collected has to go bye-bye. They're not supposed to use that. They're not even supposed to have it. The commission vote to refer to complaint. The commission vote to refer the complaint and stipulated order to the Department of Justice for filing was 5-0. Commissioners Andrew Ferguson and Melissa Hollyoak concurred on the counts 1 and 2, but dissented as to counts 3 through 5, right? So I'm not going to go into too many details about that, but we're going to go and dive into the actual thing right here. Yeah, basically it just goes into what actually happened. What does this mean right here? Bloomsburg has a paywall. Use the direct FTC press release below. Cognisphere, the distributor, has reached a settlement agreement of the United States Federal Trade Commission to strengthen and increase transparency around our parental consent and virtual currency practices. The statement of Cognisphere is below. Animation-style games and shows are well received by global audiences and players across various ages. Genshin Impact is a popular free-to-play anime-style game designed for older teens and adults. While we believe many of the FTC's allegations are incorrect or inaccurate, we agreed to the settlement because we value the trust of our community and share the commitment to transparency for our players. Under the agreement, we will introduce new age gate and parental consent protections for children and young teens and increase our in-game disclosures around virtual currency and rewards for players of the U.S. for the coming months. What could this mean? Basically, we could see some stuff change with the summons. We do know that obviously that the whole data issue is a big deal, especially with COPPA being a big thing. I'm not going to pretend that I'm super smart at this type of stuff. Like, I do know at least the general gist of it. It means that Genshin Impact got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, right? Now, what could this mean for the future of Genshin Impact? Well, we could see some differences in regards to our summons. We could see the rates better. There's plenty of ways that they could go about it, but ultimately it looks like a lot of the predatory stuff that they were doing before might honestly be X-nayed. Now, is it going to be completely gone? Absolutely not. We're still going to see, obviously, FOMO take effect, but it might be a lot more pulled back. I don't know. I personally, and this could have happened before with another game, I personally haven't seen this. So it's very strange that they're only going after Hoyoverse when, there's other companies as well that do this, but I will say that Hoyoverse, when it comes to Genshin Impact, has the worst time when it comes to how they treat their player base. So, um, yeah, a lot of stuff. It seems like it's got a lot of people like this. I see this one. For example, Banisher offered two, technically four options. Use a Fate ticket tape for a single pull, pay $2 directly for a same pull, use a 10 pull, or pay $20 to do a 10 pull. $20 would be in, well, I mean, yeah, $20 is basically what it is because you spend 50 and you get like two multis. So I don't know. I I think that there's going to be changes. Obviously, there needs to be changes in general. I think Genshin Impact's in general, Hoyo versus style is not very good when it comes to this stuff. But who knows when these changes will actually take place. I do think that they do need to be age restricted because these types of games with the sexual themes that they do have, the little sexual themes that they do have, where they're showing giant ass bazongas and jiggly asses and all that stuff. I think that kids under the age of 13 shouldn't be playing a game like this. Not just because of the sexualized nature, but also because of the predatory nature of the gambling aspect. Now, again, I don't know what this is going to mean for Genshin Impact, but let me know in the comments down below what you think about this. This is pretty big news, in my personal opinion. But yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Love you guys to death. And as always, we'll catch you in the next video. Please take care and be safe.